Hi, everyone. This is Sue Reynolds, and Debbie Howell from ASA is joining us as well. And it is about 5 after 2. We like to start these right on time, but we only have 2 people from Mechanical that are actually on the call right now. I think we're expecting people from all 4 schools. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute Kelly. So Kelly, it looks like you have a speaker in your computer. You're using the internet. Kelly, good. Can you hear me, Kelly?
I can hear you.
Good.
Can you hear me?
You too. Yes, we can. Kelly, what school are you from?
Mechanical Elementary, but all of the steering committees for Mechanical are here in the same room. We're all viewing it together.
Oh, good. Okay.
So we're ready to go.
Okay, so everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good, and great. So, and how many people do we have there?
Lots. We're counting.
Okay, because it looks like we had about 2 per school registered, but then again, I understand that 1 person registered and then you're all grouped together. So,
right. There's about 28 of us in the room, so all the schools are represented.
Great, good. And it sounds like then that you have new steering team members with you as well, so that we're not at our first meeting that we did with the counselors and principals. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. So, and then I also have Amy Snyder well, here, let me just unmute Amy. Amy is called in on a telephone. So, is Amy employed at Mechanical, or how is Amy fit into this?
We have one of our steering committee members is in Florida, so she used Amy's login, and so she's accessing the meeting through Amy.
Okay, but she's not with you. She's in a different location?
Yeah, she's in Florida.
Oh, in Florida. Okay, great. Well, hi, Amy. So, Amy, I just sent you a PIN. So if you want to enter that PIN into the control panel, that would allow us to unmute you so that you can participate in conversations. So, wonderful. So, our focus of getting together today is to and I'm going to kind of, Kelly, I'm going to mute you because I'm getting a lot of feedback as I'm speaking. So,
okay.
Yeah, there we go. Much better. So, so Kelly, if someone wants to speak, or if anybody wants to speak, just you can send a text or raise your hand in the control panel, and Debbie will be monitoring that as we go. So Debbie will interrupt me if we need to answer a question or when we're ready to have a discussion. So, okay, very good. So today we're going to do a really quick review of the things that we covered at the last workshop, which we had such a wonderful time with you guys. That was really kind of a fun day for us. And Debbie has been keeping me up to date in terms of your submissions, and we've had a chance to talk about your work, and so far so good. And we think everybody's kind of gotten off in a really good direction. So we're excited to talk about this next part, which is to collect data. When we begin meeting with your councils, all of our discussions will be data-based. So right now we're just collecting all of the data that we're going to need for those discussions. And then when we meet with you with the steering teams next week or next month, we will start preparing for the first council discussion. So, okay. So in terms of a little bit of review, and then after the review, I'd like to hear kind of an update on just chatting how things are going in each of the 4 schools. But just a reminder that in the terminology that we're using this year, we're talking about 4 different types of activities that school counselors do, and then one type of activity that is actually not a school counseling activity. We just call that non-program. So to just define these real quickly, just as a reminder, the guidance activities are activities that counselors do when they teach all students the knowledge and skills that they need to make good decisions in areas that impact their academic, career, and social and emotional development. So if we're teaching students how to apply for financial aid, that would be a guidance activity. If we're teaching students the process for reporting bullying, that's a guidance activity. If we're teaching them about different post-secondary education opportunities or how to take notes or study skills, those are guidance activities. So when we're doing a guidance activity, we're in teaching mode. Today, we're going to talk about how counselors spend their time and collecting some data around that. So these definitions kind of become key so that we all know what we're talking about when we're using these terms. So guidance activities, since they're not social emotional counseling, we're in teaching mode, they can be provided by a whole lot of different types of folks. So counselors, community members, teacher advisors, classroom teachers, we can all, engage in teaching kids. So, okay, and then counseling activities are the activities that are providing counseling for targeted students who have social emotional concerns. So not for all kids, but just kids who have come to school with something that's going on in their life that's interfering with their learning. And because we're in social emotional counseling mode here, these services are only provided by those who are licensed in the helping field. So a licensed school counselor, school social worker, school psych. Okay, then there's advocacy activities, which is when we're standing up for a group of kids. We're speaking up on behalf of a group of kids. Or sometimes we could be speaking up on behalf of one student. So again, we can all be advocates. So this does not have to be a school counselor. It can be lots of different types of folks. And then management activities are the things that counselors and others are doing behind the scenes in order for the school counseling program to run smoothly and efficiently. So right now, you all are participating in a management activity. We're looking at evaluating the school counseling program, and you're all, going to be participating in that discussion. So right now, you're all doing a management activity. Some of you are counselors, some of you are not, but you're all involved in the management now of the school counseling program. So, and then there's non-program activities, and those are good activities. There are things like calculating GPAs or sending out transcripts or balancing different sections of algebra. But they're not school counseling activities. So we're defining non-program activities as any activity that does not help students master guidance standards or address personal or social issues that are interfering with learning. So, and some counselors spend almost 100% of the time doing non-program activities, things that have nothing to do with guidance and counseling. And other counselors spend very little time doing that. So that's one of the things that we want to look at with data is just exactly how are the counselors in Maconaquah in your schools spending their time, and is that how you want them to be spending their time? So, okay. And then the other idea that we talked about last week was that in Guiding All Kids and also in Redesigning School Counseling, adults work together. So in Guiding All Kids, we're talking about really developing all 5 of those delivery methods in a coordinated way. And then when we're talking, when we're doing Redesigning School Counseling with some schools, we're just talking about the counselor delivery method. But with Guiding All Kids, it's all 5 of those delivery methods. They're all working together to help kids. So, and then this is kind of important today too, as we start to talk about data. Just a reminder that that this is how we believe school counseling impacts achievement. That when students are involved in sound guidance and counseling programs, they're taught knowledge and they're helped with their social emotional issues, they tend to make better choices. And because of that, the school achievement will go up. So we're going to be collecting data in all 4 of those areas, and we'll talk about how to do that in a sec. Okay. So, and then finally, the other thing we talked about at our meeting, and you guys have been busy working on this, is looking at the organizational structure. So you've put together a steering team, and I'm so pleased that so many of you are at this convening this discussion. That's really good. And then within that steering team of 6 people, we asked you to delegate responsibilities. So one person on the steering team was responsible for council recruitment, and they got busy last month in recruiting council members. And I know from talking with Debbie, you've been actively doing that. And then another of your people on your steering team is responsible for your data collection. So when we chat in a minute, we're going to, not all of you have entered that into the online system, but we'd like to know who is responsible for data collection in each of your schools. And really, while we're talking to the whole steering team, because there's so much to do that tasks are going to be delegated, it's the data collection point person that this falls upon, this responsibility. The next one, the person responsible for council meetings, we'll be talking primarily to that person next month as we get ready for the first council meeting. And then as we go on, each of the different point persons will have a unique set of responsibilities as we delegate tasks and move through this process. So systemic change is really complicated. It's really broad and intense. And we have found that it's incredibly important to delegate tasks well. For those of you who were not at our meeting last month, when we talked about recruiting steering team members, we asked the counselors and principals to recruit good worker bees who were really responsible and were good at following through. Because when we delegate these tasks, if one person doesn't follow through with their tasks, then somebody else has twice the work to do. So, so I know that you were selected to be on your steering team because you are a responsible person that follows through. So that's really good. Okay. Excuse me. So the other thing you've been busy doing is recruiting your council. And remember, that's a large group. Just as a reminder, the steering team are the facilitators of change, but your council members are the decision makers. And we want that council to be as broadly based as possible. So as you're recruiting your council members, and they will meet next month, and we'll talk about that at our steering team training next month. As you recruit those people, you're looking to recruit both school people and community people. And the folks that are asterisk there, one of the requirements of Guiding All Kids and the suggestions for redesigning school counseling is that you have those people represented on your council. So if you are a community person on your steering team, we hope that you can help your steering team really do the community outreach to get folks to serve on the council. If you're a parent, we hope that you can do outreach to other parents. So we know that you're really busy right now still recruiting council members. And again, that's okay. I'm going to go back because one person on your steering team is responsible for council recruitment, and they probably have volunteers that are helping them with that. And then another person on your steering team is responsible for data collection, and then later today you'll talk about how to get that all delegated. So it's possible to do two types of tasks at the same time because we have different work groups working on the different tasks. It just makes everything work very efficiently. Excuse me. So, okay. And then final reminder, this is the one-year calendar. So we're doing data collection today. And then there are the dates for the upcoming steering team workshops with us. And please make a note that we changed the May workshop. We heard that we were told that you had a conflict with May 7th. So we've moved that to May 6th. If that's not going to work, let us know right away. That kind of was the only date that we had available that week. So we're hoping that will work. Okay, but today, November 7th, we're working on data collection. Okay, I'm going to pause here. And what we'd like to do is just see from, as we go through these presentations, if anybody has any questions, if you've typed them in, Debbie will share them with the whole group, or if you just want to raise your hand, we can unmute you. You can ask the questions. And then in right after questions, I'm just going to ask each of the schools to give kind of an update, kind of a state of the process update of how things are going, and any hurdles that you've faced, anything that's going really well. How's your steering team working together? Any hurdles there? So just anything you want to chat about. So we'll take maybe 10 minutes for that little discussion, and then we'll move on into the nuts and bolts of the data collection. So, Debbie, I'm not seeing any hands up. Do we have any questions that have come in?
We do not have any questions that have come in.
Okay. I'm going to just count silently to 10 so people can quick raise their hands. I know you're all together probably at one computer that's being projected. Yeah, and isn't this cool that Amy Snyder can be in Florida and we're all doing this together? I think that's cool. So I'm assuming that you're looking around at each other and nobody's having any questions. And so I will go on. Okay, so what we'd like to do is to hear then from each of the schools. And Kelly, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your mic now so that Debbie and I can hear your discussion. And I guess who wants to start? Just one school that can kind of tell us how things are going in your school. So you'll need to identify who you are and the school you're from. Kelly, are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Kelly?
Hello, can you hear us?
No, I'm having really trouble hearing you. Whoever's speaking, maybe if they could come close to wherever the mic is, that would be good.
I'm sitting in front of the laptop now. Can you hear me?
Yes. Is this Kelly again, or is this someone else?
No, this is Laura from Pipe Creek.
Okay.
So at Pipe Creek, we have our steering committee members identified. They are all here today. And we've brainstormed a list of council members. We'll be reaching out to them after today's webinar.
Okay, that's good. And what's the feeling like? Are people excited about starting this journey, or did you go back from the last meeting and think, oh my gosh, what have we gotten ourselves into? What's the energy level like?
I think honestly, we're all a little overwhelmed with looking at the scope of the 4-year process, but that's kind of, I think, the general feeling is trying to digest everything we heard in that first meeting and remember that it's a step-by-step process.
Okay, that's good, and I appreciate your honesty in sharing that. It really helps Debbie and me when you guys can tell us kind of what the hurdles are and how you're feeling about everything. What you're feeling in terms of being overwhelmed, that's kind of normal. We talked last time about how I always worry that when we do the introduction and we talk about the whole year all at once, that it just feels just incredibly so much to do. And actually, in this case, we're talking about 4 years all at once. So, but you hit the nail on the head. It is a step-by-step process. One of the real keys is in not getting behind, because then you've got 2 or 3 months worth of stuff to do, and then it does get kind of overwhelming. I think the other thing that makes this a little challenging in the first month is that, we start this at kind of the same time that you're trying to get school started, although we did wait till October, but yeah, that kind of adds to it as well. I noticed that Pipe Creek looks like you've got your steering team members in. You've identified the primary contact, which is great. What about the steering team assignments? Do you have the data collection point person assigned?
No, we haven't made any assignments yet to our steering team. This is the first time we've met together.
Okay. So that is also something I think will help when it starts to feel overwhelming, because right now, we're going to talk with everybody about how this data collection works. We want everybody to be aware of what's going on, but really only one of you is going to have the responsibility for doing that. And they'll bring in others to help, but that means everybody else gets to be helpers rather than, having to be the one that's in the know and in the lead. Everybody else just does what they're asked to do instead of having to think about what needs to be done. So I think that when you get, and I would suggest as soon as you can, like maybe even before you leave today, to sit down with your steering team and get those point positions assigned. I think that will help things not feel so overwhelming because each person will know that they just have one little piece to do. So, and whoever gets data collection, we're going to talk about it today, and it is kind of overwhelming because we do a lot of data collection. But when it's over, it's over. We only do it once a year. It'll only take, a few weeks to do to get it all done, and then your tasks are done for the rest of the year. So, we talked last time about how some of the point positions, it's not so much work, but it goes on all year, and then others, it's a little bit more work, but it ends at a certain point. So, good. So, from Pipe Creek, any questions for us?
Guys, any questions, Pipe Creek? Nope, we can't think of any right now.
Okay, very good. So let's go. I don't know who wants to go next.
We have the high school coming up next. Janet McManus.
Okay. Hi, Janet.
She said hi. Hi, how are you?
Good. So what's going on at the high school?
Well, at the moment, we are delegating duties to our steering committee, finalizing some of our council members. We're making lists for those council members so that we can compile them all together. And then we'll be able to meet.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I've noticed that you've got your attributes in. That's wonderful. You've also got your meeting dates in. And I think that's something, too, that kind of makes everything feel a little bit less overwhelming because then right now you're just collecting data. Next month you're just doing one meeting's worth of work. So good. And when you took this back to the high school, because you have more than one counselor at the high school, right? There's two?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And did you feel like you were able to communicate all of this to the other counselor? Wasn't there some discussion about both counselors serving on the steering team? What did you all decide to do with that?
We work together to make sure that we have everything taken care of. So we're working together.
Okay. Are both counselors here today, or
she is. She's here.
Perfect.
Yep.
Good. That's great. Cool. Okay, that sounds good. So that's the high school. Who's next?
This is Amy Snyder from MacL, but I'm not in Florida. I'm here with everybody else.
Oh, okay.
One of our other steering committee members is in Florida.
Oh, and they used I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Still cool that they can be in Florida and be participating.
We've got our. I think we're like somebody else said, we're pretty overwhelmed. But we do have our steering committee in place. We've already contacted some potential council members. I'm just really kind of waiting to hear back from them and make some phone calls. I don't know. Figure out what that's the main thing.
Good. So you have your council meeting dates in too. That's a good thing. You're feeling overwhelmed. I understand that. That's kind of unfortunately normal. But I'm looking here, you've not assigned the responsibilities yet. At least you may have, but it's not in our system. Do you know yet who's doing the data collection?
No. I mean, that's kind of what we just kind of need to get together and decide that. So.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that sounds good. And any questions for us?
Nope.
Okay, and I think that leaves the middle school, correct?
Hi, this is the middle school guidance counselor.
Hi, okay. Update from the middle school.
I have my steering committee here with me today for the first time. We've all the buildings, we've kind of brainstormed some ideas for the council, and we kind of wanted to make sure that we were not that we weren't calling the same people and asking them to be on the council. So we kind of had Laura got a spreadsheet going on that for us. I have asked 4 or 5 people so far to be on the council, and they've agreed to do that. As far as data collection goes, I believe you told us at the last meeting that really that should be the guidance counselor, so I have assigned myself the data collection process.
That sounds good, yes, and I did notice that all of your point positions are in. That's wonderful.
I haven't told them that yet, but I chose what I thought they would be the best at. So I kind of assigned them. We'll discuss that here in a little bit, hopefully. So I did email several questions the other day. That looking ahead, that I had some questions, and so I did email those, and basically was told if they weren't answered today, either to resubmit those or whatever. Because they're kind of random and all over the place.
Okay, so if it's, we can, at the very end, we'll take any other, questions that you have that we don't cover, or any, if something pops into your head as we're going through, just type in a question and Debbie will interrupt me and we'll just answer that question as we go. But yes, we definitely want to get all of your questions answered today, so that's good. And I do think, go ahead.
Mine are kind of random, and so I don't know if they need answered today. So I mean, they're kind of random so.
Okay. Yeah, whatever you're comfortable with. And as you all know, Debbie is here, for you, and we hope you get to the point where you think of her as one of your steering team members, and just, whenever anything comes up, you just call her and, and get her input or bounce an idea or ask a question. But that's what Debbie's here for. That's her only job, is to serve you guys and the other schools that we work with RC and GAK. So, yeah, so so make sure that you're using her, and I know you guys have been, so that's good. Okay, so and the other thing I wanted to mention with the middle school, because they have their point positions in, and we know that, and they have a sense of who's going to be working on the data collection. Once you get your point persons assigned, when we do these workshops, the person whose responsibility it is to carry out the tasks, they kind of listen in a different way because they know they're going to have to do the work. So it really is helpful to know ahead of time who's doing which tasks, so that people know, if we're talking to them specifically, or if they're just listening in to be familiar with something. So, okay, that sounds good. So let's go on to data collection. And so I'll start out with just kind of some broad strokes, and then we'll get into some really nitty-gritty how to get this done. We have some really, I think, very amazing tools that have gotten a lot of national recognition for their comprehensiveness, but also their simplicity. So we'll just start here. Okay, and very good. So we talked about the school counseling impact pyramid before, and we want to be able to collect data at all 4 levels. So we're going to find out, what do kids know? That will tell us about their guidance needs. We'll see what social emotional issues do kids have. That will tell us about their counseling needs. We'll see what choices kids are making. And then we'll also look at achievement data. So the big thing is, though, that the the main thing that we're focused on with Guiding All Kids is the student choice data. That data is the data that we want to impact. This is the data we want to be responsible for. So we will end up selecting 3 or 4 choices that we want kids to make. And the data that we're collecting now will be the baseline data for those choices. And then later we'll do follow-up. In next year, we'll do follow-up data. So just like we know that teachers use instructional methods and we kind of evaluate their instructional methods, but the bottom line is did the students learn? So we look at test scores and stuff. This is just kind of the same way. We want to know in school counseling, are kids making different choices? And that's the main data, just like for classroom teacher, it's, our kids learning knowledge. In order to make those student choices, kids need knowledge and they need to be free from social and emotional issues. So we'll address these things and we'll put data to them so that we know what they know and what issues they have. But the focus is on fixing or improving, or that's not the right word, targeting guidance and counseling activities in a way that allows students to make the choices that we want them to make. And then as a result of that, we would expect your school's student achievement to go up because the kids are making better choices. And this data will tap into your school improvement plan and look at the baseline data and the target achievement data that's in your school improvement plan. So that's kind of really, of the broad picture. So these are the questions that we want to be able to answer with data. For the kids, we want to know what plans do the kids have for the future, what choices are they making, do they turn in their homework, do they complete financial aid forms, do they work things out instead of punching somebody when they're mad, what choices are they making. We want to know what knowledge do kids have about careers, educational opportunities, and social and emotional skills. And then we also want to know what social and emotional concerns do the kids feel they have that are interfering with learning. So we'll provide you with tools so that you can answer these questions. For the counselors, we want to know how are counselors spending their time? What do students think of their counselors' knowledge, skills, and dispositions? If students don't think that their counselors care, or they think that the counselors don't know anything, even if the counselors really do care and do know a whole lot, if the perception of the counselors is that they don't, then we know that kids are less likely to use their counselors. So that's a big question. And then how are counselors using the free guidance resources provided by the state? So we'll do a real quick self-study on that. And then in terms of your program, we want to be able to answer these questions. What resources are available for the counselors? What best practices are in place in the program? And then what opportunities are being provided for students? So we'll collect data in those 3 areas as well. So those are the questions that we want to answer. These are the instruments that we'll use. We'll provide you with a student survey. It's an online survey. It surveys students' plans and choices, their knowledge, their social emotional needs, and how they feel about the school counselors. We'll provide you with an online time use log where counselors will be able to ascertain the percentage of time that they spend in the different types of activities. And then we'll provide you with 4 different self-studies. These are pretty quick. They're just kind of check boxes and fill in the blanks that will help you look at your program in terms of your opportunities, how you're aligned with model practices, if you're using free guidance resources that the state provides, and what school counseling resources are available to the counselors to use in your schools. So those are the collection instruments. And then I always think whenever someone asks me to collect data, the first question I want to know is this worth my time? How am I going to use this data? And if I'm not going to use it, why am I collecting it? So we'd like to help you understand once the data is collected, how you will be using it. So in terms of the survey, there's 2 different kinds of reports that are going to come out. The first type that I'm talking about is just group data. So we're putting together data for groups of students. So here's an example. This these questions are all about student engagement. Do you usually ask your teachers for help when you are confused? Do you almost always turn your homework in on time? Are you absent fewer than 10 years? Were you sent to the office because the teacher thought you were misbehaving? So you can see these questions, would help you make decisions about your school counseling programming. But it also, we think, would help with your school improvement initiative or even initiatives in the community, that where community organizations can later implement activities to help with this type of question. So other questions in the student survey ask students about their future plans. What do you plan to do during the first year after high school? What type of high school diploma do you expect to receive? Again, this data could inform where you want to focus your program. I know that in my first year of doing this, and actually this is all a real schools data. You can see on the apprenticeship program, only one student out of 399 was planning to do that after high school. My guess is that they probably those students didn't know what apprenticeship program is, because there's a lot of benefits to apprenticeship programs. And usually when students are aware of apprenticeship programs, we get a higher, than just one. So if I were a counselor in this school, that would inform my decisions about the information that I was providing for kids. And then what type of high school diploma do you expect to receive? So, there's another one. That data is really interesting to look at over grade levels. We tend to find that, and it'd be interesting to see if this happens in your schools too. We tend to find that the honors diploma, the Core 40 with honors, there's a high percentage at the end of 8th grade and 9th grade and 10th grade, but then it drops off drastically after 10th grade. So, and again, that just kind of informs your decisions. What's happening? So, because, the kids drop out of that diploma track after 10th grade. So, okay, so future plans, student choices, we're just asking kids, did you do these things? Did you visit a college campus this year? Did you complete the Indiana College Cost Estimator? Did you or your parents attend a program about financial aid? So we're just asking kids if they made these choices, did they do these things? And then on the guidance needs questions, we're asking kids about what do they know? And can they use the information that they know? Can they describe the level of education that is required for the jobs that interest them? Do they know how to find jobs that match their interests? Can they demonstrate effective practices for interviewing? So, and again, we start to see real trends in the data. We can see that, in this school, we're looking at the kids that said yes were, around 50 to 60%. But the interviewing percentage is a little bit lower. And that would, make me think, gosh, am I hitting the mark there on what I'm teaching kids about interviewing? Where are they learning about interviewing? If that's not part of my program, where is that happening? So, and then sometimes we'll find a question where the yes response is like 3%, and then we know we've really missed the mark on that one. So, okay. And again, if you miss the mark, it doesn't mean you have to do anything about it. It just is giving you information so that you can have a discussion and think about it. Okay, and then the counseling needs, this data is only available to the counselors. And unless the counselor has given us permission to share it with the steering team. So, and I'll show you how that works in a second. But so we've asked the students which of the following is making it difficult for you to succeed in school. So, controlling my anger, fighting or hitting, drugs and alcohol. Again, this is a real school's responses. So you can see in this school, 1 out of 5 kids said that anger was making it difficult for them to succeed. So, kind of interesting. Perceptions of the counselors. And again, this is only available to counselors unless the counselors. Actually, I told you wrong. This data on the counseling needs, that aggregate data, the group data, is available to the steering team. It's the perception of the counselors that we ask for permission from the counselor before we share that data with the steering team. So, does your counselor care about you? Does your school counselor have high goals for you? Does your counselor believe that all students are important? We ask questions about counselor dispositions, counselor knowledge, and counselor skills. And all the questions are aligned actually with the licensing standards for school counseling in Indiana. Okay, then just as in terms of using the data for program design, let's just say we're looking at one question. Do you know where to find extra help in your courses if they need it? So 75%, this is a real school's data, 75% of the kids said yes, they knew where to find extra help. But that meant that 25% weren't sure or said no. And you can see this was a large school, 1,200 students. So in this school, 13% represented 161 kids, and not sure represented 149. So there were 300 kids, you know, a fourth of the students who didn't know where to find extra help. And if I saw this data, I'd kind of want to drill down the data a little farther. So I might be thinking, you know, maybe it's just the 9th graders in this high school that don't know where to find extra help because, you know, they're new to the school and we haven't taught them yet. But as I look at the disaggregated data, I see it's pretty even across all grade levels. Even about a fourth of the seniors are saying that they know where to find extra help, and they've been in the building for 4 years. So that's kind of interesting. So then I might be thinking, you know, if it's not grade level, you know, can I narrow down who these kids are? And I might think, well, maybe it's the free and reduced lunch kids, because sometimes, you know, their parents are working 2 or 3 jobs and they don't have time to provide guidance for their children as much as others do. And, you know, maybe it's them. So I look at that disaggregation and I find that, you know, it's about the same. There's a little bit of difference, but still for my paid lunch kids, it's you know, 20% that are 1 out of 5 that are that don't know where to find extra help. So, you know, that's not narrowing it down at all for me. So I'm going to look at one other disaggregation. This time I've asked the computer to give me a report that's drilled down by grade levels. And bingo, look at the discrepancy. When kids get A's and B's on their report card, 85% of them said they knew where to find extra help. And when kids did get D's and F's on their report card, only 26% of them said that they knew where to find extra help. So now I know, okay, I really need to focus on the lower achieving students and make sure that they know how to engage with extra help, because they're telling me that they don't know where to get help. So, okay. And then the system will allow you, and this is a really unique aspect of our survey, the system will allow you to go into our database and find out who those kids are that said that they didn't know where to find extra help or they weren't sure. So you can go into the system, you can find out who those 25 kids are, and you can contact them then. You can, I'm going to go ahead for a minute. Nope, I'm not. Anyway, you can contact them. You can send them an email that says, you know, we found out that we see that you don't know where to find extra help, and you know, we'd like you to know that you know, we provide tutoring on Thursdays after school, or you know, come have lunch with us. We'd like to have a discussion with you, and maybe one of your partners, then your GAK partners, is providing pizza, and you're having lunch with those kids to talk about, you know, this is how you get extra help in our school. You know, we want to help you. So you're able to find out who those kids are and then contact them. I'll talk about that in a second. So in terms of who can access the group data, the public can access plans and choice data and guidance needs data, but the student assistants, the perception of the counselors, and the counselor survey responses, in this survey that we give the counselors that I'll talk about in a second, the only people that can access that data is school counselors. And we just wanted to assure you that we've worked with attorneys that specialize in school law and specifically in FERPA law to make sure that we are being compliant with all FERPA and applicable Indiana codes regarding surveying and handling of student data. So if you need us to talk with anybody about that, we'd be happy to. Okay, so that's the group data, and then I just started talking about the individual data. So on the survey, in the student survey, there are a couple of questions where we ask kids to opt in. The first one is we say, would you like your school counselor to provide you with individualized information about how to plan, prepare, and pay for college? So that would be like we were talking about before, if a student said that they didn't know how to find extra help. If the student answered that question as yes, you'd be able to find out who that kid is. So, and then we tell the student, by answering yes, you give permission for your name, your contact information, birth date, demographic information, in responses to survey questions, to be released to licensed educators employed by your school district. Normally, we are releasing to the licensed school counselor, but sometimes the principal will get in and use the online system. So anybody with a username and password that you have as a steering team can get into this section, provided that they're employed by the school. Okay. And then the other question is, would you like Indiana colleges to be able to provide you with individualized information? And it's the same thing. If they say yes, then the colleges have the ability, like Purdue could go into the database and ask for a group of kids who are interested in information technology, who have never done a campus visit, and then they can send an invitation to those kids to do some program on campus. So yeah, so that's the individualized part. When you ask for our computer for an individualized list, you get a list of all the students' email addresses with either commas or semicolons between them, depending on what works into your email system. And other things that you could do, let's see, that one, yeah, was the extra help example. So one that I love is because it's a huge time saver, is if I know that there's a rep from DePaul University coming to my school to talk to kids, I could just ask the computer to give me a list of all the kids who are interested in DePaul, and in a matter of 1 or 2 minutes, I can just send those kids an email saying the DePaul rep's going to be here on Thursday, come to the office to sign up for a pass. So lots of different applications. You can also do things that are multiple requests, like you can tell the computer, give me a list of sophomores who plan to go to college, who earn A's and B's on a report card, and do not plan to take an AP or do a credit course in high school. And then you can get that list as an email list again, or for any of these questions, you can also get an Excel file so that you can print mailing labels. So maybe you want to invite the parents of those students to a special program where you're going to talk about your AP courses. So you could get that out of the database that way. Okay. And again, who can create the student lists? The public, they cannot at all. The school counselors can and colleges can, but only in a limited way. You can only get student names if the student gave us permission for us to share their name. And if it's a college, we're only allowed by FERPA to provide names of students who have already expressed an interest in that college. So, okay. So that's the survey. I'm going to talk a little later about how to administer the survey, but I just wanted to give you a heads up of what data is in the survey and how you might use that data as you're planning and redesigning your school counseling program. And then also in future years, when we get into the teacher advisor program and the community-based guidance in future years, they will use that same data set. So we're collecting data this one time, but it's going to inform all 5 different delivery methods. So, okay. Then I'll talk about the administration of the survey in a second. Let me pause again and see if you have any questions about the survey content itself. And Debbie, any questions typed in?
I do not see any questions.
Okay. Okay. So let's look at the counselor time use data. So the reason we're collecting this data is, one, to give a more accurate sense of the counselor full-time equivalency. And again, this is a school in the northern part of the state's actual data. I took out the school name. But for elementary A, on paper, they have a full-time counselor. But after they started looking at their time use data, they discovered that their counselor spends almost 1/4 of their time doing things that have nothing to do with guidance or counseling. So, so they don't really have a full-time counselor. They have a 3/4 time counselor and a 1/4 something else. It has nothing to do with guidance and counseling. So one of the things that the computer will do after you log all your information in is it's going to help you and your steering team understand the degree to which the school counselors are being asked to do things that have nothing to do with guidance and counseling. If that non-program number is high, it's not a negative reflection of the counselor. My number in non-program the first time I did this was 90%. And then over time, we whittled that down. But it just, it opens up a great discussion about how are we using the counselors that are in our building. Okay, and then another thing that the time use log will help you do is to compare your desired use of time with your actual use of time. So you can see in this case, this counselor wanted to spend a fourth or 40% of their time doing guidance activities where they're teaching kids, and in reality they were spending 0% of their time. So as this school, as they looked at this data, oops, let me come back here. I don't know why that's moving forward. So as they looked at their data, they started, looking at, well, where can we get time? And then they looked at, well, gosh, we're spending 37% of our time on management activities. How can we whittle that down? Can we get rid of some of the non-program activities? And they started doing that reassignment of time so that they came closer each year to their desired time percentages. The other thing that's kind of interesting here is data for an entire district, and this district had 4 elementary schools. And if you look down that non-program column on the right, you can see that there's one school that has no tasks assigned to non-program tasks assigned to their counselor, and so immediately in this district, the other principals were contacting the principal in elementary C and trying to figure out, who, if they're not doing your non-program tasks, well, who is? And so in this school, they actually have gotten all the schools now down to close to 0%. But it was this one school that kind of set the bar by showing that it could be done, that we could find some other way to get the non-program tasks done. Okay. And then one other thing that I personally loved about my time task log is that it really gave me a way to gain control over my day. We started in our department scheduling our time just like a doctor or an attorney schedules their time. We planned it ahead of time. We scheduled appointments for kids. We kept everything really flexible, so if a student had an emergency, we could get him in if, he told us he was going to commit suicide or whatever. But we scheduled our time ahead of time, and we put it into the log. And then we just, we'd come in the morning, we'd get the log up, and whatever it said to do, that's what we did. And this pre-planning of time was huge in terms of getting rid of my non-program time, because then if the principal or a teacher came in and said, oh, do you have a minute? Could you do this? I could honestly say, no, I don't have a minute. I've got passes out for students all day. And if you want to wait till next week, I can help you, but I'm kind of booked up for this week. So at any rate, so that is another benefit, I think, of doing the time task logs. Okay, and then the other types of opportunities, then the student opportunity data, we'll preview that data when we're planning future activities to make sure that you're giving kids the opportunities that you want to be giving them. On the Elements of Model School Counseling Program self-study, we'll look at that once a year to just kind of see how your program is comparing to some of the best practices. So that's it. So the surveys, the data collection that we're asking you to do, it's not data that's just going to sit in a shelf somewhere or a drawer. It's actually data that we're going to pull out. It's going to inform your decisions. Your council members will talk about that data. We'll give you all the tools you need to facilitate that discussion. And then they'll make decisions based on the data. So, okay. Let me pause again, see if there's any questions typed in.
No
Debbie,
questions are typed in.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. I'm going to do a quick check with Kelly. Kelly, because you're my eyes in the room. What's your sense? Are people kind of Is this making sense to people, or what's your sense? Are we good to go forward?
I'm Kelly with the Beaver voice, and I think we're good.
Okay, we'll move on then. Thank you. Okay, so survey administration. First of all, the survey, we would like for the survey to be administered to every student in the building. The survey window is going to open up in January, and you'll have a month to get all the kids surveyed. There's some really easy ways to do that I'll go over in a sec. The reason we're kind of adamant about all students taking the survey is that if it's not all kids and there's results that people are uncomfortable with, what they tend to say is, oh, well, the survey must have been skewed because you didn't survey all kids. You must have just happened to survey all the kids who were involved with drugs and alcohol, or you just happened to survey all the kids who were completing their homework, or whatever. If you survey all kids, you get past that. So we really recommend that you survey every student in the building, and there's some really easy ways to do that. The survey, we're actually in the process of redesigning it right now. Our last year's survey, this is how many questions were on the survey and how much time it took the survey to be administered. The survey questions are really short. They all, say things like, do you know this, or did you do this? Most, as we observed students taking the surveys, the average amount of time per question was 5 to 10 seconds. So these numbers are based on 15 seconds per question, so longer than we think kids need. That said, we've had several requests from schools to make the survey shorter. And one of the things that we're doing right now that you'll be able to take advantage of is we're redesigning the survey. We're looking again at which are there questions, items that we can omit. Because we're aligned with the Indiana Gold Star School Counseling Award and the ASCA RAMP Award, there are some questions that we just have to leave in even if we wanted to take them out. But we're really working hard to make that survey shorter. So, okay. Then the survey window is January 1st to February 1st. When we start talking about goal setting in February, we're going to need to be looking at baseline data. So we need the survey to be finished by February 1st. And the survey will open January 1st. So you've got 4 weeks. So here's a really easy way to get this done. So first of all, we have a ton of schools that have successfully surveyed all students in their school. Couple notes, you don't have to survey all students at the same time. And it also, we think, really helps to, if you help your teachers understand the value of the survey. So a couple of options. We think the easiest way to do this in a middle school or high school, in an elementary, is to provide teachers, all teachers in the building, with instructions for how to administer the survey. And then just to say to everybody, okay, during the second period today, we'd like you all to give this survey. We've had schools that have gone on like a snow day, a late school 2-hour delay or 1 hour delay, and then but the kids, they've gone on that schedule, but the kids have shown up at the regular time, and then in that extra hour, the whole school is surveyed. So that's just a really easy way to do it. All the counselor has to do is kind of coordinate, we'll provide instructions for the teachers, and counselors would just, identify the time when the survey is going to be given, and then they'd pass out survey administration instructions to the teachers, and the teachers would get that done. I noticed at the end of number 1, the survey window is wrong. For you guys, is February 1st or January 1st to February 1st. Another way to do this, which is the way I did it, is we just divvied up the classes, and every day for like 3 weeks, we brought in 20 to 30 students at a time into a computer lab to survey. I actually think number 1's a lot better option. That was much more time consuming on the counselor's time. because it was so work intensive. But number one, they're just having all the teachers administer the survey to their second period or fourth period class. That works really well. Okay, so really quick way to survey everybody in the building. And how it works then is that whoever's giving the survey, you will have survey codes to give them. So they'll write on the blackboard, 8th graders, your code is, A, 8A, H, 8DW. 9th graders, your code is, 10th graders, your code is. And then they'll ask the students to go to the web address, so asasurveys.org. And the first thing the kids are asked is to enter their code. That code tells our computer what grade the student is in and what school they're in, so that we can give that student's responses to your school. And then they just take the survey. So it's really easy to administer. One thing we want you to realize is that the survey is actually 2 back-to-back surveys that appear as one survey. We've done that for confidentiality purposes. The first survey asked the kids to identify their name and their contact information, their demographics, what their race, ethnicity is, if they're male, female. And then it asked questions about the students' plans, choices, and knowledge. On that survey, we want to be able to connect the plans, choices, and knowledge to students' names, so that if the student has allowed us to release their information to you, we can do that. The second survey is totally confidential. To the students, it all appears as one survey, but about halfway through the survey, a screen will come up and it will ask them to identify their student demographics again. And that's because they're now into the new survey, the second survey, and the second survey does not talk to the first survey, so that we can't in any way associate student names and contact information with the questions in the second survey. But we do want to connect their demographics. So we just want you to be aware of that, and you want your teachers to be aware of that. It's because about halfway through the survey, the kids are going to say, wait a minute, I've already answered these questions. And the instructions just say to acknowledge, yes, that's true, but we needed the survey designers needed to do this to protect your confidentiality. And then just tell them to answer questions again and go on. So, and in that section, we're asking questions about the students' social emotional issues and their perception of the counselors. So next week, we'll be sending you an email that's the GAK November update. And in that email, we'll be asking you if you would like to be a survey reviewer. If you'd like to look at the survey that we used last year and advise us on any questions that you would suggest we keep or omit or revise, you can do that. There's new questions that you'd like us to put on the survey, we can do that. And then we're also asking counselors to suggest a survey time length. So, how long do you think we can keep kids engaged in the survey? So if you want to be a survey reviewer to help us shape the survey, we'll be sending you instructions for how to do that next week. And then you also will see a request for reviewers on Counselor Talk and some other means as well. So, okay. And that is it, other than to walk through the online system to kind of show you how this all works. Debbie, any hands up? I see a hand. Let's just unmute Kelly. Oops. Kelly, what's the question? I think I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you maybe come closer to the mic?
I'm practically on top of it.
Oh, that's a whole lot better.
Okay. We're a one-to-one school, so K through 2 have iPads, and 3 through 12 students have laptops. Is this survey supported on iPads?
Yes, on iPads and on iPhones. However, I'm going to mute you again because there's lots of background, but don't go away. On K2, we do a paper survey. We've just found with an online survey with kids that young that it doesn't work as well, so well. So what we do with K2 is we only ask the knowledge questions And we have the kids put their heads down, and the teacher reads the questions and then counts up and tallies how many kids raise their hand that they're answering yes to the question. So K2 is a paper survey, but after that, yes, it's supported by iPhone, iPad, computer, yeah, any of those. Okay, I just unmuted you again. Any other questions? Good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's go to the online system, and we can kind of see how this all works. If I can escape from here. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to, and I think I'm logged in as the middle school. I'm not going to show you any of their stuff, but I just wanted to kind of run through this on a real
Sue, we have a hand up again.
Okay. Okay. Another question.
Yes, we have one other question. Is there any way to split up the survey into 2 parts so we can do one 20-minute section, maybe one day, and then the next 20-minute segment the next day, rather than doing it all 40 minutes at the high school level?
Something that I understand. That's something that we are considering. Possibly. The programming on that is really, really difficult. That's one of the things as we're looking in the next 2 months at the survey redesign. That's one of the things that we're considering, and I'm assuming that since you asked that question, you think that would be a good thing for you guys.
Yes, it might, rather than lose one whole class period, pretty much at the high school level. Okay. That might be a little bit better use of time, splitting it up, so the teacher's not losing a day of instruction.
Okay. Yeah, that's so we'll think about that. I think that makes sense.
Problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. That suggesting. And again, that was one of the reasons. Like several schools have told us that they've gone to the 1 hour delay, but brought the kids in on time, because then all of the periods got to meet. Just every period was a little bit shorter, because they didn't want like one section of algebra to miss a whole class period, and then the other 2 sections of algebra, were a day ahead. So if we're not able to do that, that may be a kind of a workaround, so that you're not losing one period. You just shorten all the other periods to make that time. So just a thought. So, okay, sounds good. Anything else? Good questions, good comments. Okay, not hearing anything, so I'm going to go through the online system. Okay, so I'm just going to walk through this fairly quickly, but we're looking now. So I'm going to go back up to the page. So we've worked on the Get Organized section, and you should have over here in the right-hand column lots of meets criteria. And again, if you've not done your steering team assignments, please do that like ASAP, like maybe today, because we think that's really, really important. And then we know you're working on step 2 to build a council. Again, the council's not going to meet until December, but it would be nice for people to know during November that they're on the council and what the date is for that December meeting. Just make sure your December meeting date is after our training. Okay, so then I'm now down working on step 3. So, and it looks like there's just a ton of stuff to do here, because there's like 15 or so different lines. But remember, we've broken everything down into little tiny steps, just like in a cookie recipe. It says put in the milk, and then it says put in the flour. Everything is its own little line. So don't get freaked out, please, that there's all these different lines. So the first one, is to register for the webinar, attend the webinar. So we've done those 2. Estimate time percentages. We want this to just be a guess. So when I open up this enter page, Right now, we're just guessing what percentage of the counselors' time do they spend on guidance, counseling, advocacy management, non-program. And then there's definitions and examples there. Actually, I think I'm going to, let's see, where am I going? No, that's good. Okay, so then, no, but you know what? I'm going to move to demo school because there's a part of this that I want to actually do, and I don't want to do it on Mechanic-Laws. Let's see, there's Mechanic-Law. That's not, am I logged in Mechanic-Law twice? Okay, bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to go out of here so I can get to demo school so I can actually do some things. Demo GAK school. Okay. Okay, and now I'm on the process tab. Very good. So, then begin the counselor time use log. So this is something that we are hoping that you'll begin like tomorrow, which means that the counselors would need to be set up to have their own personal log page. And so what I'm about to show you is how to do that. So there is a video here that explains also what I'm just about to explain. But basically the video is going to tell you to go to enter. And this page is asking you to, as a default, each counselor will be able to change this, each individual counselor, but as a default for your school, when do you want your log time to start and when do you want your log time to end? We want to capture any hours that the counselors might be working. So if I were doing this back in my school days, I know that sometimes I or my fellow counselors, we got to school really early to work on something that we just needed extra time. So I would probably start my log, and sometimes we stayed at night and I want to be able to log those things. So I'd probably take my log up to 10 o'clock. That doesn't mean that there has to be things entered at 9 o'clock and 7 o'clock, but if I'm working late, it allows me to be able to put in the things that I'm doing. And then we also have counselors like different time blocks. I personally like a 20-minute time block, so that I'm kind of logging what I'm doing every 20 minutes. You also have, we had one counselor want a 5-minute time block. I can't imagine, but that worked for her. So that's an option, or a half-hour time block. I like a 20. And then you just hit save. And then down in the next section, you're going to set up the individual log sheets for each of your counselors. So you're going to add a counselor. So you'd put in their name, Jane Doe, and then their email address, doe@anyschool.com, and then just save it. Now, when I save that, you can see that that immediately sends an email to this counselor with a personalized link for them to access their personalized log sheet. If they lose that link, I can resend it, or if this counselor leaves the system for some reason, I can remove that counselor. Or if I've typed in the counselor's email address wrong, I can go in and edit the counselor. Okay, so now I'm going to show you. This is what the email looks like that they get. So you've got their you've got the subject line, GAK, your counselor time use log. You're receiving this log or this email because a member of your school's Guiding All Kids steering team has requested that you have a personal portal to the online counselor time use log. Using this link, you'll be able to set goals, log your counselor activities, and access reports that summarize your time use. By using the counselor time use log, you are giving ASA permission to release your time use information to your Redesigning School Counseling or Guiding All Kids steering team and your school district if your district is also in RSC or GAK. So, which you guys are also in GAK. So your district is in GAK. So this would release the information to the district level data as well. Okay, so here's the personal link. So, and it's just saying, you know, keep that link. So when I click that link, it opens up a page that looks like this. So these are all blank. I just went ahead when I was prepping for this webinar and filled some of it in. But they put in, you know, what are my contract hours, and then what kind of FTE am I on paper. So if I'm full-time, when I was full-time, I was 37.5 hours, and I was a full-time counselor. So they would enter that in there. And then this is ideally, how do I want to spend my time? So, you know, this is, again, you know, we haven't looked at any data to show where my time needs to be spent yet. So this is just kind of my best hunch. I'd like to spend, you know, 40% of my time doing guidance activities. If you forget what those are, this will pop up with a definition. 30% of my time in counseling, 10% advocacy, management, non-program. And if they don't add up to 100%, you'll get a little, you know, flag there that you haven't filled up your entire day. Okay, and then this is asking when do you want your personal log to start and end? And again, I would err on the side of making this log too long rather than too short. If your counselors even one day are going to be in the building doing a parent night, parent open house or whatever, we want to be able to capture that time. So I'd make it, you know, I'd make that pretty broad. Make mine 6 in the morning to 10 at night. And then for that personal counselor, what they want the time block to be. So then they save that, and now once the counselor information has saved, the default will be to always to go to this log sheet. So I would just, you know, say I get there at 7:40, and the first thing I'm doing is writing student passes. And that's going to take me 20 minutes. I would say that's a management activity, so this M is for management. It took me one time block. Then I'm going to start seeing students. So I'm seeing Brian Hall, and this is a follow-up counseling appointment with Brian, and so there's instructions in here about how you can very quickly fill in Brian Hall for the next 2 time blocks too, if you want him to be. So the codes at the top are guidance, counseling, advocacy, management, and for non-program, and then paid time off. So during Thanksgiving holiday or Christmas or winter holiday, you can put P's in for those dates. If it's free time, like lunch or some counselors, not very many, but some have a prep period, they would enter in an F. And then because we need everything to be filled in to calculate all the percentages, there's also, if you forgot the log and you just forget, you would put a U in for unknown when you go back to fill that out. So then as I do that, these summary reports are going to be filled in. So, you know, here's my goals, and then here's my actual. Right now, because I just entered into things, I've got half my time in counseling with Brian Hall and half my time writing passes. The more of those little boxes I fill out, the more that this will fill in. So there's the year summary, and then there's a week summary. This was really interesting in my school. As we looked at this, we discovered that our management in everything went way down in October. And so we thought, you know, we have time in October to do something different. And so we did a lot of our group counseling in October. But the reason we knew to do it in October is because we could see the ebbs and flows of how we were spending our time in these different areas. So it's really, really interesting. Then you can see too that it's giving me, you know, for this week, I've only completed so far 2% of the log. I have 36.8 hours that are unaccounted for. So again, if that's, you know, like that, then we want to go back and do that. And then finally in the tips, there's a discussion here about when to complete the log. We like people to complete it the day before, and then just follow the log, just like a doctor follows their schedule. which categories to use. That gives you some tips. That always comes up. And feel free to call Debbie to say to her, you know, I'm doing this. Is this guidance or is this counseling? Is this management or is this guidance? Is this advocacy or is this guidance? You know, so in the beginning, there's always a lot of questions like that. So just call Debbie and we'll help you think that through. And then finally, there's some instructions here about how to, a quick way of filling in multiple time blocks with the same activity. So, okay. So that is, I'm going to go back to the, oops. I'm going to go back to my demo GAK. Okay. So that is the counselor time use log. Student demographics, you that's just a kind of a fill in the blank. We ask you lots of questions. If you have questions about any of our questions, just call Debbie. In this part, we're looking for who else provides services besides your school counselors. Do you have a secretary? Is there a registrar? Is there are there volunteers that help you do your programming? So yeah, so you've got that. School demographics. On your achievement goals, this is an uploader button. You've not seen one of those before. You just click that and then you pull a document out of your files. What we're looking for is the achievement goals in your school improvement plan. So if those will all appear on one page or 2 pages on your school improvement plan, you could just scan those and just update those pages out of your school improvement plan for us. But everything that we're doing in GAK is headed towards helping you improve those achievement goals. If you don't have anything that's clean, or actually you find some school improvement plans that don't even have achievement goals in them, they're just not well written, there's also a form here that we've created that you could just fill in the blanks about your achievement goals. Then elements, this is the next four are the self-studies. And again, they're just kind of, I'll just open up one of them. They're very quick to do. You can see you just read the best practice and then just check off if you exceed, satisfactory, not satisfactory, or this is missing. Right now, there are probably a lot of things that are missing, but after our work together, they will all be filled in. If you were exemplary right now and had all the best practices, you wouldn't be doing guiding on kids. Okay, so those are the self-studies. Then the next section are about the survey, but we've broken this down into steps. First step is to watch a video. I'm going to show you a little bit of this right now. I'm going to demonstrate some of this right now, but if you want instructions, this video will help you do that. If you want to see the questions, you can go to this tool and all the questions will pop up. And again, keep in mind that we are revising these questions right now. Suggested time the survey takes, I showed that to you in the PowerPoint. And then collecting the student data. So again, you can download here the K2 paper survey. And then for setting up the rest of the survey, it's really simple. It's really so simple, except that for some reason this is not hot. Okay, so I'm going to select the question sets, and you'll click there. There are 4 question sets, and the ones that we talked about before in the PowerPoint. We just want to make sure that you've included them all. For RSC schools, they're voluntary. For schools that are not seeking Gold Star or the RAMP Award, they're voluntary question sets. But if you're seeking the Gold Star Award or the RAMP Award, you want to make sure you have all those question sets. And then for survey administration, this just kind of walks it through you. Here's the instructions. Here's here's where the students are surveying for grades 3-12, entering tallies from the surveys. And this is a report where you can see how many surveys have been taken in your school. Yeah, so there's just lots of just a step-by-step. And again, the video kind of explains that. I wish I could show you that page. I apologize that this is not hot right now. I think that's probably not hot because we're revising the survey. But basically, you'll select your question sets, and then it will say, here are your survey codes. For 8th graders, here's this code. For 9th graders, here's this code. And then as soon as the students open the survey, they put that code in, and then that customizes the survey for them. Okay, so then that's kind of it. Let's go back. And then the last thing is counselor permission. This is that extra permission that that we're looking for. Let me back up. That we're downloading this form, and this is basically saying that the counselors have given their permission for us to share the counselor perception data, especially if there's just one counselor in the building. Then we know who those perceptions are about. So we just need you to fill that out, and then let's upload it. Okay, and then in this part, I'm sorry, it's not an upload. In this part, you're just saying that you have this form on file in the school. And then finally, always, check the rubric items before you submit things to us, because then chances are it's going to come in well done the first time, and we won't have to send anything back to you for a revision. So, and then finally, and then we'll take questions. And Debbie, I'm sure I've forgotten things that you want to add. We also have for you a data collection plan. And I would suggest that you get together as your steering team and you just walk through this. Who's going to estimate and enter the counselor time percentages? When will the counselors start logging their time? Who's going to train the counselors, which in your case, you're here, so that's not necessary. When will the counselor training take place? Who will complete the school demographics study? Who will do this? So again, if you are the data point person, if you are in charge of the data, if I were you, I would just ask your steering team committee to get together and just kind of walk through this and kind of assign tasks to each other so that it all gets done. On the survey, a lot of times the school will have one person in charge of senior surveys, another person in charge of 9th grade surveys, or 4th grade and 3rd grade, to just kind of make sure that somebody is overlooking the surveying at each grade level. So that may be something worth thinking about, but I think every school does it a little differently. So okay, that is it. Debbie, anything to add? Any questions, or do we have questions from the group?
Okay, well, the only comment I have so far is to the team in Mechaniqua. Christy logged off around 3:20 and said, sorry, she had to head to a meeting. Okay. But please forward her the slides. So, and to what you were to the system, I have, remember that the time use links that are sent to the counselors are specific links for each counselor. So you can't email your link to somebody else and because they will get to your log.
Right. So when they get the email has a link that is, I'm trying to bring that up real quickly.
Specific to them.
Yeah, it's specific to that individual counselor.
Right.
Okay.
And then on that page, on that page, they'll also see links to the definitions of guidance, counseling, non-program advocacy.
On which page? On the time use log page?
Yes.
Okay. So on the weekly log, when they click it, like if they forget what guidance means, they can, good point. They can click on this little info and here's the definition and then examples. Good. What else?
Let me think.
This would be a good time to ask questions too. Okay, I'm going to unmute the mic. I just want to check to make sure, see what's going on. Okay, for those of you who are there, can somebody just kind of give Debbie and me a heads up? Are there questions?
Our committee can go. Okay, our committees are about, we told them that they could leave at 3:30. I did email a whole bunch or several questions. Do you want me to ask those now, or do you want to answer that in the email I sent?
I'm happy to answer them now if you want to.
Okay, on the model of school counseling, the self-study, where do you find Appendix A?
Good question. I just, as I was prepping for this, I found that too. That is, and it may be changed already. I put in a request to get it changed this afternoon. That is going to link to the student opportunities self-study, which lists all those student opportunities. So yes, thank you very much for pointing that out. That it always helps when schools find a little glitch that we don't find, but on that one I found it this afternoon. So that one, if it's not fixed now, it will be shortly.
So Appendix A should appear shortly. Okay, and then
yes.
On on the standard achievement goals, our school improvement's kind of a moving target. I mean, because it's will be higher than the state average. So when you get to the target dates, I don't understand what I should put there.
Yeah, that's is there something in your school improvement plan that talks about those goals that you could just scan and submit?
Yes, and I already entered them. I just didn't know how to finish that last block on the form. Okay, and then my other question. Okay,
let me answer that a different way too. Okay. One of the things that so we do a whole school improvement initiative as well as GAK and RSC. Encourage schools to do is to set very specific data targets and not do things like above state average, because then, as you pointed out, when the state average moves, you don't know if you've met the target or not. So, because it's always a moving target. But if you've got that, we're not married to that form that you can download. Yeah, what I would do is I would just find a place in your school improvement plan that it talks about your academic goals and just use that language and scan it and upload it.
Okay, and then my other question was about the crosswalk data. How do we submit that? That's not an editable document?
I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to understand with the quality of the audio.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, well, there's some noise about it. On the crosswalk data to submit that for the steering or for the council, that document is not editable. Is that a word?
Yeah.
So
let me look at it. So on the steering team,
it's
or on the council crosswalk. Yeah, I'm with you. So what that is doing, okay, good. You're asking great questions. Let me move this up a sec. Okay. So that is a report that comes out of where you've entered the roster. So when you enter the roster, like you're entering a person. So I'm entering a person here.
Right.
Yeah, so it's pulling the data off of here.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
So it will fill that in then.
Yeah, you can edit there.
Okay.
Yep. So that's just a report, and that's from the step in front of it. Great question.
Okay, I think that's it for my questions, and I think everybody else is pretty well done for the day.
Okay, that sounds good. The one thing is, for those of you who are left, the one thing I really encourage you to do is to get the steering team point people assigned and start doing the time and task logs like ASAP tomorrow, the next day. And just really remember, if this will become totally overwhelming very quickly if you start to get behind. If a school is 1 month behind, they can recover fairly easily. But if they get 2 months behind, it's very difficult to get caught up. So just, time to get those steering teams meeting and take those steps forward and use Debbie. That's what she's here for. So, and it sounds like some of you are already, so that's great. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We'll talk to you next month.
Okay, thank you.
See you.
Do I just X out of this?